A note is a string of text placed at the bottom of a page in a book, a document, or at the end of a chapter, volume, or the whole text. The note can provide an author's comments on the main text, to citations of a reference work in support of the text, or both. In English, a footnote is normally flagged by a superscripted number immediately following the portion of the text the note is in reference to, each such footnote being numbered sequentially. Occasionally a number between brackets or parentheses is used instead, thus, dot. Typographical devices such as the asterisk or dagger may also be used to point to footnotes. The traditional order of these symbols in English is asterisk, section. Historically, was also at the end of this list. In documents like timetables, many different symbols, as well as letters and numbers, may be used to refer the reader to particular notes. In John Bach McMaster's multi-volume History of the People of the United States, the sequence runs asterisk, hash, delta, up, down, arrow. In Arabic texts, specific Arabic footnote marker, encoded as U+0602 in Unicode, is also used. In Japanese, the corresponding symbol is the way to enter the symbol in MS Gothic. The London printer Richard Jugg is cited as the inventor of the footnote. In some editions of the Bible, notes are placed in a narrow column in the middle of each page between two columns of biblical text. Footnotes are notes at the foot of the page, while endnotes are collected under a separate heading at the end of a chapter, volume, or entire work. Unlike footnotes, endnotes have the advantage of not affecting the layout of the main text, but may cause inconvenience to readers who have to move back and forth between the main text and the endnotes. The U.S. Government Printing Office Style Manual devotes over 2 pages to the topic of footnotes. NASA has guidance for footnote usage in its historical documents. Academic usage. Notes are most often used as an alternative to long explanatory notes that can be distracting to readers. Most literary style guidelines recommend limited use of foot and endnotes. However, publishers often encourage note references in lieu of parenthetical references. Aside from use as a bibliographic element, notes are used for additional information or explanatory notes that might be too digressive for the main text. In particular, footnotes of the normal form of citation in historical journals. This is due, firstly, to the fact that the most important references are often to archive sources or interviews which do not readily fit standard formats, and secondly, to the fact that historians expect to see the exact nature of the evidence which is being used at each stage. The MLA requires the superscript numbers in the main text to be placed following the punctuation in the phrase or clause the note is in reference to. The exception to this rule occurs when a sentence contains a dash, in which case the superscript would precede it. Aside from the technical use, authors use notes for a variety of reasons, as signposts to direct the reader to information the author has provided, or where further useful information is pertaining to the subject in the main text. To attribute a quote or viewpoint. As an alternative to parenthetical references, it is a simpler way to acknowledge information gained from another source. To escape the limitations imposed on the word count of various academic and legal texts which do not take into account notes. Aggressive use of this strategy can lead to a text affected by foot and note disease. Literary device. At times, notes have been used for the comical effect, or as a literary device. James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake uses footnotes along with left and right marginal notes in Book 2, Chapter 2. The 3 types of notes represent comments from the 3 siblings doing the homework, Shem, Sean, and Issy. J.G. Ballard's Notes Towards a Mental Breakdown is one sentence in a series of elaborate footnotes to each one of the words. Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves uses what are arguably some of the most extensive and intricate footnotes in literature. Throughout the novel, footnotes are used to tell several different narratives outside of the main story. The physical orientation of the footnotes on the page also works to reflect the twisted feeling of the plot. Flann O'Brien's The Third Policeman utilizes extensive and lengthy footnotes for the discussion of a fictional philosopher, de Selby. These footnotes span several pages and often overtake the main plot line, and add to the absurdist tone of the book. David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest includes over 400 endnotes, some over a dozen pages long. Several literary critics suggested that the book be read with 2 bookmarks. Wallace uses footnotes, endnotes, and in-text notes in much of his other writing as well. Manuel Puig's Kiss of the Spider-Woman also makes extensive use of footnotes. Garrison Keillor's Lake Wobegon Days includes lengthy footnotes and a parallel narrative. Mark Dunn's Ibid, A Life is written entirely in endnotes. Louis Dantine Van Routen's Mosjes, Goose's Brames, in which he is allegedly the editor of a manuscript by the fictional François Charles Fernand Dantine, contains copious footnotes purporting to help explain the nonsensical French text. The point of the book is that each written French poem sounds like an English nursery rhyme. Terry Pratchett has made numerous uses within his novels. The footnotes will often set up running jokes for the rest of the novel. Blang B. Gabler's meta-novel The Automation makes uses of footnotes to break the fourth wall. The narrator of the novel, known as B.L.A., tells the fantastical story as if true, while the editor, Gabler, annotates the story through footnotes and thinks the manuscript is only a prose poem attempting to be a literary masterwork. Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Amp Mr. Norrell uses dozens of footnotes referencing a number of fictional books including magical scholarship and biographies. Jonathan Stroud's The Bartimaeus trilogy uses footnotes to insert comical remarks and explanations by one of the protagonists, Bartimaeus. Michael Gerber's Barry Trotter parody series used footnotes to expand one-line jokes in the text into paragraph-long comedic monologues that would otherwise break the flow of the narrative. John Green's An Abundance of Catherines uses footnotes in which he says, can allow you to create a kind of secret second narrative which is important if, say, you're writing a book about what a story is and whether stories are significant. Dr. Carol Bolton uses extensive footnotes to provide the modern reader with a cipher for a novel about the travels of the fictional Spanish traveler, Don Manuel Alvarez Espriella. An early 19th-century construct of Robert Southey's, designed to provide him with vehicle to critique the societal habits of the day. Jasper Ford's Thursday Next series exploits the use of footnotes as a communication device which allows communication between the main character's universe and the fictional book world. Ernest Hemingway's Natural History of the Dead uses a footnote to further satirize the style of a history while making a sardonic statement about the extinction of humanists in modern society. Pierre Bail's Historical and Critical Dictionary follows each brief entry with a footnote in which saints, historical figures, and other topics are used as examples for philosophical digression. The separate footnotes are designed to contradict each other, and only when multiple footnotes are read together is Bail's core argument for fideistic skepticism revealed. This technique was used in part to evade the harsh censorship of 17th-century France. Mordecai Richler's novel Barney's Version uses footnotes as a character device that highlights unreliable passages in the narration. As the editor of his father's autobiography. The narrator's son must correct any of his father's misstated facts. The frequency of these corrections increases as the father falls victim to both hubris and Alzheimer's disease. While most of these changes are minor, a few are essential to plot and character development. In Vladimir Nabokov's Pale Fire, the main plot is told through the annotative endnotes of a fictional editor. Bartleby Y Companion, a novel by Enrique Vila Matas, is stylized as footnotes to a non-existent novel. The works of Jack Vance often have footnotes, detailing and informing the reader of the background of the world in the novel. Stephen Colbert's I Am America uses both footnotes and margin notes to offer additional commentary and fourth-wall-breaking humor. HTML. HTML, the predominant markup language for web pages, has no mechanism for marking up notes. Despite a number of different proposals over the years, and repeated pleas from the user base, the working group has been unable to reach a consensus on it. Because of this, MediaWiki, for example, has had to introduce its own NLT, ref and GT, and LT, ref and GT, tag for citing references in notes. An idea which has since also been implemented for generic use by the Nelson HTML preprocessor. It might be argued that the hyperlink partially eliminates the need for notes being the web's way to refer to another document. However, it does not allow citing to offline sources, and if the destination of the link changes, the link can become dead or irrelevant. Opponents. Associate Justice Stephen Breyer of the Supreme Court of the United States is famous in the American legal community for his writing style, in which he never uses notes. He prefers to keep all citations within the text. Richard A. Posner has also written against the use of notes in judicial opinions. Brian A. Garner, however, advocates using notes instead of inline citations.